Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving right back into the Taboot narrative today, and honestly, the folklore here is absolutely terrifying. We're looking at a story that perfectly bridges the gap between ancient curses and modern consequences. Think of this like a true mystery investigation. We're going to look at the evidence, analyze the supernatural stakes, and piece together exactly what was unleashed from that dark, forgotten cave. Get ready, because the way this whole thing unfolds is incredibly gripping.
So, let's start with our hook, which kicks off in the isolated rural village of Janakapuri. The scene is set by this massive, unprecedented storm that just rips through the area. But the real horror doesn't actually hit until the morning after. The villagers discover a man dead on the ground. And this isn't your normal storm casualty. A local spiritual expert, a tantric dressed head to toe in black, examines the body and makes a seriously chilling observation. The man's skin has turned completely yellow. There is literally not a single scratch, bite, or wound on him, and yet his body has been impossibly drained of every drop of blood. The tantric knows instantly that no wild animal or human could pull this off. We're dealing with something else entirely.
Now, what I think is brilliant about this narrative is how it splits our attention between two totally different worlds. On one side, you have the raw, supernatural terror in rural Janakapuri, right? Bloodless corpses, violent storms, whispers of ancient curses. But at the exact same time, hundreds of miles away in Delhi, we're thrust into this high-stakes world of modern ambition. We've got researchers in high-tech labs analyzing a mystical substance, completely driven by corporate greed and the promise of a massive scientific breakthrough. It's the stark contrast, ancient horror versus cold calculating science, that really drives the entire mystery forward.
Which brings us to part one of our investigation, the science and the mystery of the failed elixir.
Let's pivot over to Delhi for a second. Here, researchers Ishita and Meghna are attempting the impossible. They're trying to harness the Mrityunjay Amrit, the mythical elixir of immortality. So they power up their diagnostic machine to test it, and the results leave them absolutely stunned. The reading spikes to over 5,000 points. To put that into perspective, Meghna points out that this is 100 times stronger than anything they had ever anticipated. At this moment, they really think they've won the jackpot. They believe they're untouchable and on the verge of the most profitable scientific discovery in human history.
But here is where modern science hits a massive, supernatural brick wall. Ishita presses the button to extract the elixir, and suddenly, smoke just starts billowing from inside the machine. She frantically opens the container, tries to grab the elixir, and then something completely inexplicable happens. The very second she touches it, this incredibly powerful liquid just vaporizes into thin air. Gone. It vanishes. It's a pretty harsh reminder that you can't just shove ancient magic into a modern machine and expect it to play by our rules.
And this shocking failure triggers a profound realization for Meghna. While Ishita is totally panicking, Meghna just goes blank. She suddenly understands the ancient, binding rules governing the Mrityunjay Amrit. You see, this elixir cannot be commodified. You can't store it away in a lab, test it, or slap a price tag on it. Its power is conditionally bound by its purpose. It can only be given directly to someone genuinely suffering from a disease and in desperate need of healing. It's meant to save lives, not print money. So just like that, their corporate dreams evaporate right along with the elixir.
All right, moving on to part two, the escalation of terror and a trail of corpses.
While their scientific ambitions are completely crumbling in Delhi, Meghna catches a terrifying news broadcast from Janakapuri. She immediately connects that yellowed corpse to a coffin they had recently excavated from a cave in that exact area. And the threat is building incredibly fast. On night one, the storm hits and that first bloodless body is found. By night two, a biker riding down a lonely road runs into a beautiful woman in dark, flashy clothes. She seduces him, but the moment he embraces her, her nails elongate, her eyes glow red, and his screams just echo into the night. Then on night three, an angry, heartbroken husband walks into his bedroom, only to find this entity waiting for him. It manifests just to prey on his base desires before draining him completely. This thing is using supernatural seduction and raw power to leave a literal trail of yellowed corpses in its wake.
That leads us right into part three, the investigation, as we uncover the secrets of the cave. So, to figure out exactly what is causing this nightmare, Tantric Rishidhar,
who is actually the twin brother of the tantric we met earlier, and a local guy named Anuj head straight to the source. They quickly deduce that these unnatural deaths started the exact moment that coffin was removed. Their investigation breaks down into 3 terrifying yet logical steps. First, they navigate this pitch-black cave and find the exact indentation on the ground where the first coffin was taken from. Second, instead of cutting their losses and turning back, they push much deeper into the uncharted sections of the cave. And step 3, this is the real jaw-dropper, they discover a second coffin, except this one wasn't taken. It had been forced open from the inside.
To figure out what on earth happened here, Tantric Rishidar places his hand on the open coffin and uses his powers to peer into the past. And the truth he sees is just horrifying. Long ago, 4 men carried the first coffin into this cave to hide it for safety. But they had absolutely no idea they were placing it right next to a second, hidden coffin. And what was inside that second coffin? A sealed demonic witch named Damayanti. Now here's the absolute worst part. Damayanti wasn't awakened because the first coffin was removed. No, she woke up because, during that earlier expedition, Meghna stepped foot into the depths of the cave. Meghna's very presence is what broke the ancient seal holding that witch captive.
Well, this vision completely flips our understanding of the mystery on its head. The tantric realizes that the bloodless murders in the village, the biker, the husband, they're all just collateral damage. Damayanti is simply draining them to gather her strength and heal her physical form. So what does a centuries-old demonic witch want with a modern scientist? It's simple, really. Brutal, unrelenting revenge on Meghna.
Which brings us to our final act. Part 4. The Call to Berhampur and the Demon's Lure.
Now, there's a bit of a logistical problem for our demonic witch here. Damayanti is bound to the rural village area, so she doesn't know exactly where Meghna is hiding in the sprawling city of Delhi. Her solution? Psychological warfare. Meghna starts suffering from these intensely vivid, horrific nightmares. In these dreams, she finds herself trapped in a dark, completely unfamiliar jungle. Off in the distance, she sees her friends, Ishita and Anuj, just standing there helplessly. Then, she looks up and sees Damayanti sitting in a massive tree. With just a single thought, Damayanti commands the roots of the tree to snake down and tightly wrap around the necks of Ishita and Anuj, violently strangling them, while Meghna is forced to watch, completely powerless to do a thing.
Waking up drenched in sweat and screaming, it is crystal clear that this psychological torture is working perfectly. Her friends try to calm her down, telling her it's just stress from their failed lab experiment, but Meghna isn't having it. Driven by absolute panic, crippling guilt, and fierce loyalty, she ignores all logic and every warning. She flat out declares that if anything happens to her friends, she won't be able to live with herself. So what does she do? She rushes straight back into the danger zone, heading directly for the cursed village of Berhampur. And this brings us to a truly chilling culmination. Right as Meghna crosses the main gate into Berhampur at sunset, our narrative shifts back to that dark, damp cave. Damayanti is just sitting there in the shadows, and she starts laughing maniacally. She says, "Princess Meghalaya has returned, my trap worked." It's in this exact moment that we realize those nightmares were never just a threat. They were a highly calculated lure.
Which leaves us with this final, high-stakes question to ponder. Meghna has walked right into a trap laid by an ancient, blood-drinking entity whose singular purpose is to destroy her. She is exactly where the demon wants her, isolated in a cursed village. So how can modern science or human loyalty possibly stand a chance against centuries of pent-up demonic rage? It is a terrifying cliffhanger that really forces all of us to wonder, what would you do if the only way to save your friends was to walk directly into your own grave? Thank you so much for diving into this explainer with me today. Keep questioning the mysteries around you, and I'll catch you next time.